And maybe you feel that this is heavy. What feels heavy? And why does it feel so heavy? Relationships themselves are not complicated. We like to believe, or more than like, we really tend to believe it that they can be very complicated because many variables are involved, when in reality it's not like that. That is to say, there are only two factors that complicate relationships. One, indeed, are external factors, and in such cases it's very clear. For example, I don't know, there is a geographical distance that obviously complicates being able to see each other. We are parents who are divorced, separated. And we have schedules that are difficult to coordinate with a future partner because we both have many obligations. We might encounter a social obstacle, right? We belong to different religions and it's important to us. Or there's an age difference that we feel others will judge, that they won't see well, making it hard for us to imagine a future. Or we are in a relationship where we are getting involved with someone who has a previous relationship. That is to say, sometimes indeed relationships can be complicated because circumstances make them complicated. All of this obviously can be fought through as long as there is enough willingness. But there are other times when it's not external or circumstantial obstacles that complicate things, but rather the situation becomes complicated the moment one of the parties stops putting in the effort. That's how it is. What's happening? Where is the problem? Well, in that lack of transparency that we will find in most cases. Why? Because the person is not being decisive either. That is to say, if someone was getting to know me, right? Because of course, when there is willingness from both sides, why do we use that term so much that it flows? Because that's the feeling. If I want to see you, to talk to you, you make me happy. It makes me happy to spend time with you, and you feel the same way. We are going to have that feeling that this is not complicated at all. In fact, this manages itself, and also the very biology in seeking to procreate the species helps, favors. The moment there is good chemistry between two people and that infatuation arises, it temporarily clouds parts of our brain so that we don't notice those theoretically incompatibilities that we have. That is why normally in the early stages there are not many arguments. Why? Because we are there well drugged, like, no, whatever you want, it seems fine to me. And this is merely seeking to have friction long enough to more or less guarantee that the phenomenon of procreation occurs. It's all aimed at that. So, as I say, letting it flow is favorable. Now then, what happens? When one of the parties stops putting in effort for the other, this starts to be seen as burdensome, as complicated. Why? Because if I want to maintain this, I have to put in your effort and mine. And it starts to become difficult for me, and I start not to understand. Sometimes it's so subtle, especially at the beginning, that I don't even start to understand. Why do I start to feel different? Because my intuition tells me so. My intuition is telling me this is no longer easy for me. This no longer runs on its own. I feel that I have to put in an effort. I feel that little by little I start to take on a burden to keep this going. And little by little this evolves to the point where I even start to develop a need to gain control over the situation to be able to remain calm in it. Because the more uneasy I feel, the more uncomfortable this situation feels to me, and the more anxiety I sometimes have, the more irritable I become for not understanding. Because this person is usually not going to be transparent. Very few people nowadays, when they change their behavior, are going to tell you, hey, look, I'm seeing things that don't convince me, or I'm considering other options. I like you, but I don't see it clearly. But instead of leaving this here and communicating, no, I selfishly prefer to keep you as an option because I also fear regretting it later. So I prefer to keep things as they are, and hey, I enjoy receiving your attention. I enjoy knowing that you're there, having you as an option, as I said. But I allow you to keep making an effort for both of us. I allow myself to receive, which is a part of the connection. I don't break the bond. I allow myself to receive. And occasionally I give a little from my side because I'm aware, or I realize that if I don't give anything, in the end, it's likely that this can't be maintained. What happens? That in addition to this, you have to add that this isn't always like a nosedive. We believe that sometimes when the other person stops putting an effort, this is going to get complicated. Every day it will be harder for us, right? And we won't know how to maintain this, right? And we will see it as obvious, but this isn't the case. Why? And many times we come to the conclusion that it's because the other person is manipulating through intermittent reinforcement, when sometimes it's not so twisted. But I have to understand that just like me during, let's say, a month of time frame, right? During this month, I'm going to have days when I'm in a better mood, worse mood, that I'm going to be changing my mood, right? Well, this person is the same, right? So sometimes when we are in emotional limbos, that other person might have days when, I don't know, they were considering other options and suddenly one of the options didn't go as expected and they feel bad about their self-esteem. And just then you upload a photo where you look amazing. And then this person says, well, deep down, it's okay. Look, Pepito and Julita, how well you are doing. They do pay attention to me. And they give you more leeway. And you start talking and it seems like things are going well. But then finally they feel again that things aren't flowing and maybe it cools down. Or this other person reappears. That is to say, there are times when being in these emotional limbos, there will be a lot of contrast. There will be moments when we will feel that we are very close to making this situation progress, that the other person finally gets emotionally involved, as we hope, just as we do. And other times we will truly be on the verge of saying, okay, I give up. It doesn't make sense. What am I doing? This person doesn't want to. But sometimes then comes that little bit they give you. That is to say, there will be intermittent reinforcement. There are times when this is conscious, okay? Meaning that we are indeed dealing with someone who is dedicated to collecting people to receive attention. But there are other times when it's not, when we are really engaging in a situation that is not clear. We are dealing with a person who also doesn't know what they want, who might have more open fronts, or even without having more open fronts, fluctuates according to their emotions, also according to your emotions. Then we have to consider the ego variable, like if one day you give more and this person gives less or whatever. We're somewhat in a schoolyard relationship, but it's inevitable. Why? Because in the end, we are all affected by the nonsense of receiving, not receiving, how much you give me, how much I give you, and that's how we are. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I try to convey in the consultations many times, we believe that to withdraw whenever we feel it has to be, because we see everything as lost, right? It's like, as long as I don't see everything as lost, my feeling tells me to fight for it, right? That I should try, that I should give it my all. Because until I give it my all, I won't be able to be at peace. Well, let me tell you that it's not like that. The only variable that matters when considering what you should do with this situation is whether it's difficult for you to maintain this. If it weighs on you, as I said at the beginning, that you say, my goodness, I make so many calculations to see how I can keep this going, to make it progress. In the uncertainty often of knowing or not knowing about the person. If I need to pray or I start praying, please, I want to hear from her. It hinders my ability to carry out my activities in a relaxed manner. In other words, it has a negative impact. For me, a very key point is this relationship you have doesn't have to be a committed relationship. This situation you have with the person affects your daily life, impacts you negatively, prevents you from concentrating, and takes away your joy. There are many moments when sadness overwhelms you, right? When you think about this person, do you feel like smiling or sometimes feel like crying, right? If it has a negative impact, you have to let go. You have to let go. What happens? That when I think about letting go, the first thing I think is, what will happen if I let go? Amanda, what will really happen if I let this be here? And here it would really be worth asking, what will happen with whom? What will happen regarding you or regarding that person? Well, I have news that I know you will like, because we are going to focus on that person instead of focusing on you. I have many videos that focus on you because I think it's the most important part. I say this from the heart. But on this occasion, we are going to focus on what will happen with this person. Well, let me tell you that far from what you suspect will happen. In most cases, what happens when you distance yourself, honestly, is that you let go of all that burden you are carrying today, which weighs so heavily on you and is so difficult for you. You let their mind be the one to start doing the work. And you know what? Their mind, when you distance yourself, does the work much more efficiently than you can. Even if you believe that by taking on the weight, by making an effort, by putting in the effort for both of you, by trying to have a super control of the situation, right? You have more chances that this will evolve, be maintained, and lead to something. The reality is not like that. The reality is that in ambiguous situations, little by little, people start losing respect for us. They start underestimating us. They take us for granted. We move on, because even within options, there are levels, right? Let's say that a person who considered you as a partner, if at some point they have doubts or are less interested and categorize you as an option, it could be, hey, an option that at any moment they might reconsider as a partner, or it could be, well, the plan Z, right? The last option. So let's say that the more time you lend yourself to ambiguity, the more time you start putting everything of yourself, right? You become increasingly the less appealing option. Why? Because you are confirming that you are willing to be an option. There are people out there who are not willing to be an option. Not everyone accepts receiving less than they give, nor are they willing to put in more effort. There are people out there who are willing to let it be. So here is a huge difference. The more you put in your effort, the more you reaffirm yourself as an option. And the more willing you are to be an option. Why would anyone give you something else? So as I say, being in an emotional limbo, carrying that weight, is not even beneficial for you. So the moment you let it go and give up, wanting to have that control and believing that you need this to work out at all costs, the moment when you lose that fear of facing the pain, which obviously brings with it the disappointment of believing in your mind, okay, well, this is not going to happen. Because it's clear that if I don't make it happen, this person doesn't put in the effort and I'm not going to put it in anymore, then this is not going to happen. When you let go, you allow this person to realize that you are not the type of person who is willing to do the work for both, that you are the type of person who loves themselves enough to be aware of what they deserve and not settle for less. And that automatically changes the way this person views you. In terms of attraction, the appeal that this person has in relation to others. Respect is established quite quickly. And also here, once again, we are lucky, as I say, their mind will do the work for you. Why? The moment you stand your ground and are no longer there making an effort, trying to impress, savoring that occasional crumb you receive in their emotional fluctuations, the moment you calmly withdraw, this person's mind, very quickly, will think, oh, what's happening? They will doubt whether they know you well. They will realize that they probably reached an incorrect conclusion about you, underestimating you because they thought you were the type of person who would swallow it and stay, right? And now they are realizing that no, which automatically reevaluates you in their mind. They start to feel respect. Again, because in the end, we have a lot of respect for people who set boundaries, for people who value themselves enough not to swallow just anything, right? And so I respect you again. What happens with respect? Respect and attraction are closely linked. They go hand in hand. The moment I lose respect for someone, think about it. Maybe you found yourself in this situation before, where you were getting to know someone you were attracted to. Maybe you didn't even realize it, and so on. Maybe, I don't know, you've made a slight retreat or cooled off a bit, and this person's reaction seemed like they were lowering their guard, like, oh my, they're seeking me out more. They're doing this. They're already making proposals that show they're going all out to try something. And at that moment, your respect for that person has wavered because you saw them as someone who, instead of showing themselves, they've done the opposite, right? And at the moment when the respect you felt has wavered, what happens? The attraction has dropped, right? Well, when this happens to us with someone else, we see it very clearly. When we are in the other position, we don't see it. Why? Because we truly believe that we are making efforts to be more liked by the other person. And we are not aware of the extent to which we are shooting ourselves in the foot. But luckily, when I distance myself and give some time, even those moments when I might have shot myself in the foot change. Why? To begin with, we are not capable. The human mind is not capable of remembering a memory exactly as it was. And moreover, the more times you remember it, let's say that each time you recall it, you make small changes. You don't realize it, but it's true. When we are in a situation with someone where we feel that they are lowering themselves for us, that they are trying too hard for us, that they don't know how to set boundaries. When I remember situations with the person as an option, it's like, oh, now when this person stops being an option and respect is restored, and I feel that I no longer have access, that this person has already set their boundary, when I start to remember this, I don't remember it the same way, truly. Suddenly the situation changes. Suddenly a situation, and the more times you remember it, a situation where I could feel that this person lost their appeal to me because they lost their boundaries upon no longer having them, suddenly I start to curiously contemplate them like, oh, how did this person really make an effort for me? What detail did they have? How did they actually make me feel important and special? We start forgetting a lot of what we didn't like and begin to miss more those things that caught our attention at first, that attracted us to the person. That is to say, really, look, I'm not going to lie to you. If there is no real feeling or not enough feeling, or if we matter very little to the person, distancing or pulling away, even if it does the work for you, is not going to achieve. That this person finally seeks you out and wants to be with you. That would be illusory, right? But being there yourself wasn't going to achieve it either. What I want you to understand is that the moment you feel that this is letting go, it's hard to sustain. By letting go of your own life, the psychological mechanisms that will come into play will do the job better than you could by insisting and searching and chasing after truly. And truly this works so well. When there's a feeling that isn't being recognized, when you are truly able to let go, to distance yourself, to take that step back, to focus on yourself, seriously on yourself, the person on their own, going through phases of regaining respect for you, of feeling attracted again, of starting to change the narrative of what you both experienced in their mind, of regretting, of missing you, and on their own, they sometimes come back completely transformed internally. Truly. So don't overthink it, don't hold on at all costs, and allow life to either redirect you or let it do the work in their mind. Let their mind do the work for you, truly. Well, I hope this video is helpful to you, that you liked it. If so, and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to do so, to hit the bell, because I would love for us to see each other again very soon. And until then, as always, I send you a big kiss.